Mike, one of my senior students, he just had a very good question. If this kind of motion works so effectively, why don't we see it in MMA? Why don't we see it in MMA? It should be there. It's a laboratory. Shouldn't this apply to everything? And my answer is, we see it in MMA all the time, hidden in plain sight. I was just talking about Fedor. That's all he does. All of his training, if you look at it, is based on that. He does his pull-ups to full extension and works on small shoulder rotations to learn how to generate power from the furthest expanse. He swings sledgehammers while pivoting backwards. He does spinning exercises with one hand out, staring at his fingertip, and then comes out of it completely dizzy, goes into a flurry running backwards to emulate getting rocked and moving backwards and hitting. Breaking every law of boxing, of fight sport. He does it. And that's only what he voluntarily gives freely to his opponents on YouTube. I'm doing this. And yet no one else is doing it. Right? It's crazy. If I look at, and I give the example, if I look at most combative sports, it is what we call side-centric. Fear-based. I want to defend myself first. So I work like this. Right? And we jab until we can cross, and crossing is that foray into giving more of my body towards my opponent. To be able to deliver my backside towards and cross over, I'm much more open and static. I come back with a hook. I'm scared. I jab, 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 tentatively. I throw the cross, I come back. That's how most people fight. It's like a push fight, right? Exponentially expanded. But if you look at MMA, there was that evolution where they took that notion of the Wing Chun straight blast and they turned it into a modified straight blast. And so they start working bang, 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 bang. And when they see the opening, instead of just ending at the cross and then recoiling back to the fear position, they deliver the cross, catapult their foot, and go into what's called a modified straight blast, which is precisely this. I step and I punch on the opposite axis. And what this does is it emulates walking. In Muay Thai, it's sometimes called a chewing gum walk. It's trained like that with weights. Looks like nothing, right? And in Sistema, the most basic Sistema drills you see have this being programmed. I touch my fist up. You move and I follow you. And whenever it's no longer comfortable, I move my body to match you. And when that's no longer comfortable, I switch hands. Very subtle drill. One of the most important things I'm learning to do when I do this is I'm learning to keep contact with you all the way through my gravity cycle. Unified, apex, and everything in between. Lead step, that's a jab. That's a cross. That's my floating center of gravity. That's my married, floating gravity. It's right there in plain sight. And it can be that soft. Touch my opponent and move. And that's it. Make sense? What we're going to do now, if we look at MMA as well, I can show you at lunch if you guys want to stick. I have highlights of the first example of the modified straight blast being shown in MMA was Vitor Belfort. His first 3 to 4 fights, he won each of them in less than 15 seconds. By doing this. Running forward. And he was tending to hit on the unified step on an X axis, but when he got really good, sometimes he'd fire 2 punches. Boom! In there. And one was floating and one was dropping. Just like Mike. As soon as I showed Mike this, Mike did this, and then the second phase he did it, he started moving his steps more than his punches, and throwing a few punches per step, just like a boxer. And right away you've explored the energy. That's all it is. And then what did that lead to in MMA? Exploration of the X axis, you were asking? Superman punch. What is the Superman punch? Superman punch is a fake step and a hit when I'm in the air. Where is that? Floating or dropping? Dropping. Floating. Hitting at the apex. Let me bore you, Judy. No, I'm not going to hit you. Just give me your body. Oh, okay. So watch. Boom! My highest point, I hit you. Floating. Breaks my rhythm from a 4 count to an 8 count. Totally catches you off guard. You're not expecting it. I cross distance way faster than you'd expect. Messes up the program again. And then everybody started catching on. Who was one of the first guys to be really successful with that? GSP, Montreal, right? Then everyone else started doing it. What did GSP do when he fought Matt Hughes the second time? He added a 10 beat in there, man. And this is what he did. As he faked his jab and he went up to do his X shot, his Superman punch, he recoiled and did a lead round kick before he landed. And he did this. What's that all about? Now he's hitting at the peak, he's hitting on the drop, and he's hitting in between. Whether or not he would see the energies that way or not, that's a systemic perspective, but that's what's happening. And it's right there. And then once you understand that energy of hitting wherever you are, it doesn't matter. Everything just blends. We isolate it cognitively, so we have a structure for our drilling. So we say, I'm better at this, I know it. This sucks and I need to work on it. I know it. That's it. Everything else is excuses. Right? So we're going to do one very simple drill before we go to lunch. Very simple drill. No impact, no pain, but high rep. We're going to do it 5 minutes each, because I want to ingrain this on you. And so all I want you to do, your partner is going to walk however they want to walk. I have, again, like Sonny said, avoid walking backwards. Bad things happen, you bump into each other. So I kind of point my toes where I want to point, and I walk. That's it. And I want to see that at least I can have my fist pointed to him like a gun, or I could even be touching, or I could be touching however I want, wherever I step. And whenever I want to switch, like bodyguard work, I switch. And so that moment of contact, if it became punctuated, I'm hitting everywhere in the spectrum. Does that make sense? We're going to do that for the first 2.5 minutes. The second 2.5 minutes is going to be a little bit more complex. And what we're going to do is we're going to only try to touch on the X. So I'm not going to touch with my hand when I'm in the lead. I'm going to only touch with the opposite side as in front. Like I'm walking. And sometimes it's going to get too close and I have to reset. Or pushing. And I see what that feels like. It's going to be a bit more tension. First one, pretty close, see what you can do. Stick on them, touch them, and if you want to punctuate it, you punctuate it. Let's go. I'll tell you when 2.5 are done.